Today's video is sponsored by Many Worlds Tavern, an online coffee company. I like my coffee how I like my Dungeons & Dragons, dark and homebrewed, and Many Worlds Tavern delivers on both, literally. Their featured product is the Treasured Realm Coffee, which is a coffee they only make a limited number of bags of, and each order comes with a numbered card, a limited edition sticker, and a D&D 5e magic item, and a set of dice. While the extras are nice, I really just want to emphasize how good the coffee is by itself. Not to be a coffee gatekeeper or elitist, but the coffee has really shown me I've been drinking bad coffee for a long time. Homely House and Dragon's Nest are my favorites. Aromatic, nutty, and most importantly, delicious. If great coffee and awesome extras weren't enough, they also donate $1 of each bag to support gaming-related nonprofits. The first 100 people to use discount code ALLTHINGS10 get 10% off their order. Rogue literally goes rogue and earns his comeuppance. Hi everyone, All Things D&D is back with another story. It is always the rogue. I'm genuinely curious as to why. Is it the allure of stealth and stealing? Getting away with murder? Being edgy? Find out how this rogue gets exactly what he deserves, and after, help me understand why you think people that play rogues act this way. So I've been playing D&D for a long time. I started as a kid playing 1st edition, and I've been running my own games for about 15 years. I have a lot of funny and occasional horror stories, but this is always the one that comes to mind whenever a conversation comes around to the subject of bad players. Stick with me, it's a little long, but the end is worth it. I had recently joined a small gaming group, 2 to 3 GMs taking turns running different campaigns for a small group of players, most of whom are friends or friends of friends. This was kind of the source of the problem. I had mostly been running Vampire for the group at that point, but as 5e was brand new at the time, I figured the next time it was my turn to run a campaign, I wanted to introduce the players to 5e. Most of the group loved the idea, and I spent a few months creating a campaign world ready for them to play. The game rolled around and I introduced them to the setting. We had a good session 0 going over the rules and introducing them to the playstyle, and ginning up their characters. We had Hraffen the Human Wizard, Grag the Half-Orc Barbarian, Aesop the Dwarven Cleric, Nira the Elven Ranger, and let's call him Doug the Human Rogue. Now, Doug had been playing with most of the gaming group for years. Indeed, he had been a member for longer than I had. He was a nice enough guy when he wanted to be, but he was a bit of a slob and had poor manners and some other issues. Right from the start, Doug was a problem. He usually played the various 40k setting games and he struggled with the new system, getting easily annoyed and frustrated. I did my best to help him learn the rules, but he literally refused to even look at the books, and what the others picked up in a couple of sessions took him months. The campaign started in a small village beset by a lizard folk tribe, who had been peaceful for years. The rest of the party investigated the attacks and fought off a few raiding parties before figuring out the sudden aggression was caused by the arrival of a new shaman to the tribe. During this, Doug mostly just complained. Unless he was stabbing something to death in the most gruesome way he could think of, he was bored or on his phone occasionally looking up when it was his turn, and usually taking a suggestion from one of the other party members for what to do. I tried talking to him repeatedly, trying to get him interested, trying to find some way to bring him into the game, and then when that all failed, asking if he would prefer not to play. But Doug was adamant. He wanted to play because he always played whatever the game was, and he was fine, and I should just run the game. Now, I know I should have just cut Doug from the game at that point, but I was still quite new to the group, and he was good friends with several of the other players, so I did my best to work with him rather than cause trouble. The party finally found out that the shaman had been possessed by an evil magical MacGuffin, a black orb that reeked of necromancy that they finally captured, killing the shaman and returning the surviving tribe members to peaceful coexistence once again. At that point, they were tasked by the village elders to take the orb to the nearest city where it could hopefully be destroyed, or at least sealed away forever. The training wheels were off. The party was off out into a larger world. All they had to do was escort the lead box with the orb inside to the city. Everyone was happy. Everyone except Doug. Doug wanted the orb. Every time the party rested, he tried to sneak off and open the box. The rest of the party explained to him repeatedly that it was evil, that it would possess him, that they had agreed to carry it to the city sealed in a lead box. Nothing they said worked. Doug wanted the orb and made himself a giant ass for the entire trip. Eventually, after tying the rogue up at night several times, the party arrived at the city and handed the thing over sick to death of the rogue and his antics. They settled into the city taking up missions and going off on quests. Everyone except Doug. Doug wasn't particularly interested in doing quests for the town council. He didn't want to fight monsters or scout bandit-infested ruins. No, Doug wanted to have solo adventures. It started simple. The rest of the party would go do one thing, and Doug would say no thanks and stay at the tavern. But soon he wanted to go off on his own, entirely separate adventures, robbing places and stealing anything that wasn't nailed down. The whole party tried to tell him that separating the party was a bad idea. Out of character, I tried to reason with him. But Doug was adamant that he didn't want to go with the party and wanted to do his own thing instead, and I should just run his thing at the same time. And, like an idiot, I allowed it. For weeks, the party went on their adventures, leaving Doug to wander the city, stealing whatever he fancied. I didn't pull punches several times. He came up against things that were leveled for a full party. Not a solo rogue, but he was super stealthy and had just enough common sense to run away instead of fight. This all led up to the night the party went down into the sewers looking for a hidden passage down into the Underdark that was letting monsters up into the city. Everyone but Doug. A quick side note, Doug had been trying to join the local Thieves Guild for some time at this point, not helped by the fact that he was an idiot and repeatedly trashed their operations without realizing it. Okay, the half-orc barbarian getting drunk and trashing one of their bars was not his fault technically, but him nicking their takings during the bar brawl certainly was. So he went to the guild and again applied for membership, and the guild agreed if he did a mission to both prove himself and repair some of the damage he had caused. The job was simple enough. Break into the townhouse of a wealthy local lord who the guild were distracting in one of their gambling dens that night, sneak into his bedroom and find the strongbox hidden there, and take from it a bunch of letters, and only a bunch of letters, lock it up again, and sneak out and back to the guild without getting caught. So while the rest of the party battled their way through the sewers, I alternated their mission with Doug's own little adventure. He broke into the house with little problem, found the bedroom, opened the lockbox and grabbed the letters, and everything else inside as well. I reminded him that he was told to only take the letters, but Doug said that they wouldn't care if he helped himself, as long as he did what they wanted. He snuck back out of the Lord's home, and then Doug had his bright idea. Instead of going back to the Thieves Guild, he would go and blackmail the Lord himself, because that was obviously what they wanted the letters for. It wasn't. He never bothered to read them. So he went to the gambling den, found the Lord, and sat down opposite him, dumping the letters on the table and telling him that he had just robbed the Lord's home, and unless the Lord gave him 10,000 gold, he was going to use the letters to expose him. The rest of the players had their heads in their hands at this point. Doug smirked at me, and I asked him to roll Intimidate. He rolled a nat 1. So the Lord stood up and shouted loudly for the whole room to hear. "This villain has just robbed me, and he has the gall to demand 10,000 in gold from me. I offer 10,000 gold to whoever brings me this thief's head." Now the gambling den was careful to take everyone's weapons, so no one, but Doug, who snuck one in, was armed. He runs and predictably escapes into the night with an impressive stealth roll. Now, anyone else would have probably given up at this point, but not Doug. So when it was his turn again, as the party continued rogueless into the sewer depths, Doug snarled furiously that he was returning to the Lord's townhouse. Once there, he snuck back inside and started splashing oil everywhere. He poured it up the servants' stairs across the bedrooms and finally lit the whole house on fire before heading back to the windows he broke in through. "That'll teach him to embarrass me," Doug declared loudly as he had his character climb back out and into the waiting arms of the city watch. Because, of course, after being told he had been robbed, the Lord had gone to the watch and brought them with him to see the crime scene. Doug was pissed. He tried to fight the guards, but he was outnumbered 10 to 1. He was dragged off to jail, screaming obscenities and death threats while the rest of the party continued their adventure, unaware of the disaster unfolding somewhere above them. Doug wasn't finished. I tried to fade to black on him, but he insisted that he wanted to keep trying to escape, and threw a fit when I said it wasn't likely, but if he really wanted to keep pushing it, fine. So after he was dumped in his cell, Doug tried to pick the lock and failed. After that, he bribed the jailer into letting him go, spoiled somewhat by the death threats he kept muttering at the same time. And finally, when the morning arrived and the magistrate came to see him, he threatened to kill her, and I kid you not, kill her children if she didn't let him go. The rest of the party finally returned, tired, beaten but victorious, to find a guard waiting for them at their inn to ask questions about the rogue and his recent activities. They went with the guard to the jail to see Doug and told him they were not getting him out of this one. He had gone too far and abused their friendship for the last time. At the table, we were all silent for a moment. Doug was furious. He demanded that the players help him, and when they said no, he stormed off out of the session and didn't come back until someone else took over their campaign. In-game, Doug was sentenced for attempted blackmail, robbery, arson, the murder of the servants who died in the fire, and the attempted bribery and death threats. I didn't kill him off. Instead, I had a wizard turn him into a statue, and had him placed outside a home for retired servants to serve out the next 100 years of his sentence, thinking about what he had done. The rest of the players continued to enjoy the campaign right up until we took a hiatus for COVID. Occasionally, players dropped out, and new ones joined, but the campaign is still going strong and they love it. Doug is still a member of our group, but he seldom plays anything but the 40K games, and still considers D&D to be too smart for him, and complains if we run it for too long. Rogue was obviously not the profession he should have chosen. He should have been a miner with how much he enjoyed digging himself further into trouble. Remember folks, D&D is a team game. If you want to play a solo adventure, there are plenty of other outlets for that. Please let us know what you think and comment below. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel, All Things D&D. Our videos are posted every 5 days, so stay tuned for more amazing Dungeons & Dragons content.